Our questions. How was business this year? And if you could present some of the highlights, the key highlights.
Okay, thank you. So basically, 2019 has been a very successful year for the stock exchange, and particularly in terms of the stock market performance itself. So giving some of the key highlights for the year. Of course, one of the major things is the fact that we were announced as the host sponsor for the 2020 World Exchange Congress, which will be held in June next year. And there was a delegation of from Fiji that attended the Congress in Lebanon, and that's where we were officially announced as the host sponsors for next year. Then another major shift that happened for us was the actual relocation of office. So if investors know that we were based at the Downtown Boulevard building, and from there we moved to Sabrina building to this location. And the key point for that was to, of course, enhance our visibility and, of course, to make our customers and our investors having more access to our customer services. So that has been one of the key points to moving here. You'd also note that we have installed an outdoor screen as well, and that screen is also in a bid to enhance our visibility in line with how other stock markets internationally display their share prices. It's the same kind of concept that we have brought in, but additionally we have also brought in things like more investor awareness activities to be conducted through that outdoor screen. We then also went into a rebranding exercise for the stock exchange itself. So from previously what used to be the SPSE, we have moved that to SPX, and that's basically making us aligned to other global markets, where generally you will see that the likes of ASX or NZX, PNGX has just rebranded as well. So it's putting the sort of the factor and factoring us in through the global markets from SPSE to SPX so that we are aligned to our global forces. Then on the other side of things, we also amended our regulatory framework. There was a huge change made to the SPX listing rules in a bid to align it to the 2015 Companies Act, as well as to streamline a lot of processes and provisions which are in the existing listing rules, so that the listed entities are able to better understand the concept of continuing listing requirements and make, for example, compliance with continuing listing requirements easier for them, more streamlined for them. So that's currently has been implemented in April this year. There are some provisions which are still going through transition, and we're expecting full compliance with the listing requirements from first quarter or second quarter of next year. We also attracted Port Denra Marina listing into the stock market in August this year. That was also a great achievement for us in the sense that it was the first tourism-based company to be attracted to the stock exchange. So that obviously extended the number of sectors to 11 that is represented on the stock market now. It also attracted a lot of new investors into the market. So just from Port Denra Marina listing, there were more than 400 new investors who came into the market, and majority of those investors were retail participants. So ordinary Fijians like you and I decided to invest into Port Denra Marina Limited. That has been a very positive sign for us, particularly in the midst of all the investor awareness activities that we have been continuing from 2019 and obviously in the previous years as well. So looking at those 400 investors in total, the number of new investors in 2019 itself at the end of November is standing at 920, which compared that to the number last year, which was at this period, it was only 181 investors. So in that sense, we've seen tremendous growth in the number of new investors being attracted to the market, and it's generally, creating that awareness, financial literacy programs that we've embarked on, starting right from the school students. So the national essay competition that we conducted last year was very successful. Then this year, we implemented the national poster competition, and we saw tremendous growth in the number of applicants coming through. We took it right down to the primary school level. We received more than 560 posters to be assessed and submitted, and just seeing how much effort the school students had put into that, it also means that we did not only reach out to the school students, but we also went ahead and attracted their parents as well as their teachers, and so that general populace was involved in that entire activity. So that has been working out very well, coupled of course with our the investor awareness initiatives in terms of digital advertising and using our media partners has also worked out really well. We've seen generally investors coming to us, asking questions, trying to learn about the stock market, and then moving forward, they are not only investing in one security, but they're actually diversifying the portfolio that they have, investing in multiple companies, and are making the gains that are available on the market at this point in time. So based on all of that, of course, given the number of new investors coming in, the market has performed extremely well in terms of growth in market value. The current market capitalization, I think currently it's standing at $3.9 billion, but earlier on December, we did hit the all-time high market capitalization of $4.13 billion. And that's the highest that we've ever reached in the history of stock exchange and the history of stock market.
Was last year's checkmark.
Last year was 3 billion.
3 billion.
So we've now hit the 4.13 billion mark this year. So that's actually pegged to all the share price increases that we've seen generally in the market. So as at I think at the end of November itself, the total average return from the market for 2019 is standing at 41.3%. That in itself includes 38.9% is just from the capital gains that investors would have made from the market, and another 2.4% is the dividend yield that has come through. So, and that's particularly a cumulative figure for 2019. But on an average basis, if you look at the past 5 years return from the market, then that's the total average return is still 23%. And that is, of course, tax-free. And needless to mention that so many incentives have come from the Fijian government to develop the capital markets and particularly the stock market itself. So any capital gains that you make from the stock exchange or from your stock market investments, as well as all the dividends that you get from your listed entities, they are all tax-free. There is no tax charged on it. So that in total means that an average return of 23%, which is tax-free. Finally, maybe I should also touch base on the fact that we've entered a lot of sort of collaboration efforts with the global markets. So under that, we've entered into an MOU arrangement with the Colombo Stock Exchange, and this year in itself, we've entered into MOUs with New Zealand, the exchange, as well as PNGX just last month. So in that sense, what have we been doing under those MOUs is also very important. There's a lot of actions that have been put in place, particularly in terms of the collaboration efforts with NZX. So what we have done is there was a team that went from SPX to NZX just to be attached to them and see what kind of products they have on the market and what kind of synergies can exist between the two markets in terms of technology, in terms of human resources, and in terms of just learnings of the different types of products. Of course, it's a more developed market, but the fact that we are able to capitalize through the MOU arrangement that we have, there is a lot of learnings that is going to come from that, and a lot of new initiatives will be rolled over in 2020 from that particular MOU in itself. So yes, that in a nutshell, I think are the key highlights for the year.
Very well. What were some of the lessons learned through all that, through all that glory? Some lessons.
So of course, as a growing organization, as for any typical growing organization, I think the key lessons learned for us was, one is adaptation to technology is absolutely vital and critical. And the second one was alignment of human resources. So seeing the fact that we are a growing organization from a small company, we are sort of growing in that trajectory where markets are developing, and you have a lot of new other products to be given out in the market. All of that also requires you to make sure that you are always adapting technology, embracing it, and you are also aligning your human resources so that you can sort of effectively capitalize on the growth potential, not only for the stock market, but for the capital markets as a whole in Fiji. So that has been one of the major lessons learned. Apart from that, in terms of the market sentiments itself, so as for any growing stock exchange, you have the issues that you would have, the challenges you would have for a growing stock market. So trying to balance out, for example, the number of new investors coming in and try and balance that out with the number of sellers who are on the market or the number of listed companies that are available on the market. It's always a very delicate balance in that sense, because if you have too many new investors, generally you are seeing that share prices are going up. Now, whether that reflects the true value, underlying value of the company or not, is really what needs to be balanced out. So you have to come to a point where you have adequate buyers, but you have adequate sellers as well in the market, so that there is a balance. So even if there is too many high share prices, then there should be a balance by getting the share prices to a point where it truly reflects the value of the listed entities. But because we have sort of lesser number of companies listed, we have lesser range of products listed on the market, it always becomes challenging to sort of fulfill the demand which has come in. So attaining that balance is what has been one of the major challenges for the year. But yes, we are taking a lot of strides in terms of trying to mitigate that area, trying to get companies attracted to the market, and not just sort of looking at the plain vanilla kind of ordinary shares to be listed on the market, but we are looking at diversifying the range. So looking at things like bonds, looking at things like having just an over-the-counter trading facility for unlisted companies, which can be used as well. So a lot of new kind of diverse range of products are currently, groundwork is being conducted, and we should be, if not implementing, then a lot of work should have been completed in 2020 as well. Well, I can tell you from market performance perspective.
Sure.
So as I've, I think, already mentioned the key highlights. So for the market as a whole, as of 2019 November, the average capital return stood at 38.9%, and the average dividend yield stood at 2.4%. So that's totaling an average total market return of 41.3%. So generally, the companies, obviously, a lot of the companies performing well on the stock market means that investors are interested in investing in your companies, and that really generally results in the market growth as well.
What are some of the areas you would highlight to companies that would improve their stake in the SPX?
I think generally there, of course, we are seeing the share prices increase in the stock market, and which is sending out the message to the current listed entities that there is obviously potential for listed entities. There's generally this requirement, or there's this need, or from the investors there to come and invest in the stock market. So that should signal to the existing companies that this is an ideal time for them to be raising capital from the market to do secondary listings on the market. And we've actually seen a lot of entities get into that. So a lot of corporate actions has been realized this year alone. We've seen, for example, the likes of Fiji Holdings and RB Patel go through a share split, which is a corporate action, and that makes your shares more affordable, and you see a lot of new investors coming in attracted to your particular company. Then we've had a lot of companies have corporate actions in the sense of dividend reinvestment plans. So making more shares available for your shareholders, so that instead of taking the cash dividend for themselves, they decide to reinvest that back into the company. Then we've had two listed companies, the likes of ATH and RB Patel, also seek approval from their shareholders for a rights issue, which means that in 2020 they will be coming and seeking more capital from the existing shareholders who are there in the company. So that is actually, instead of, for example, going to a bank to take a loan and fund your capital project, you actually come back to your shareholders. You can raise capital from your shareholders, and you can use that for your capital projects or for any other projects that you have planned so far. So we're seeing a lot of traction in that area, which is really good for us, because that's really showing a sign of a robust stock market in the working. So in that sense, it has been working well. That also sends a signal to the existing sellers in the market. So we have a lot of institutional sellers, institutional investors who sort of have large chunk of shares and they hold on to it. Given the influx of buyers, this is an opportune time for them to also realize capital gains from the market. So they can also come and sell and sort of fill in the gap which is currently existing in terms of the buyers and sellers on the market. Then that's really generally for the existing ones. they should also send out a signal to the potential companies who are out there in the market who have been maybe contemplating listing for number of years now, or they have been thinking in the direction that they should be investing in the stock market, or they should be getting their company listed on the stock market. This is the time, because we can see that there are a lot of investors. You have a good base of investors ready to take up that opportunity. So if you have a business that is ready for listing, you have been planning it and you have been thinking of succession, but you haven't really taken any strides in that regard, this is the time. Because if you were thinking that you will not be able to find that investor base, those dynamics have really changed, and the market is really showing that our investors are ready, but it's just that we don't have enough supply. So if there's any time rather than now, then there could be no other time really for you to be coming in and banking on from that and capitalize from the market at the point at which it is now.
Why should people be involved in WEX 2020?
So World Exchange Congress 2020, and maybe I should be asking, why shouldn't people be really part of this and be involved in this? It's really an opportune time for a prime opportunity, I would say, for Fiji as a whole, because what we are doing is showcasing Fiji to the global markets. And we are not just showing it in the sense that Fiji is, of course, a tourist destination. Of course, it's a lovely tourist destination. But on top of that, it is also a country which has a lot of investment opportunities, and it also has a growing stock market, and it's also showing signs and signals to the global markets that we have a sound and a well-regulated financial markets. So in total, I think it's an ideal time for sponsors, for even local delegates, for business houses, for corporates, even for government ministries, and a lot of the other state-owned enterprises, and of course our listed entities, our investors, our brokers, to be part of this, so that we can showcase what really constitutes Fiji. And it's not really the sun and the sand. Yes, it is, but of course it's a lot more than that. So at the end of the day, why wouldn't you want to be part of the World Exchange Congress?
What were some of the new initiatives implemented by SPX?
So of course I can go on and on about this. There has been a number of new initiatives that has been already implemented in 2019, which will continue into 2020. And for some of them, there has been a lot of groundwork conducted in 2019. So we will start seeing the fruits of it in 2020. To start off with, I think I've talked well enough about the digital marketing thing that we've gone on for investor awareness. So that is, of course, going to continue in 2020. We've started, it's really, the momentum has been created, and we really need to continue with that. We are also going to continue with our school awareness programs, and we'll have a very exciting competition, I think, for school students this year, for next year. We're already in the concept stage, and we are very excited to be announcing that most probably in the first quarter of 2020. We are also, of course, as I had mentioned, embracing technology. So you would see a lot of changes. For example, we are revamping the SPX website so that it becomes more user-friendly, not only for our listed entities, but also for investors generally, or people who are interested in knowing about the stock market. The website should become one of their key tools for that hub of information. We are then also looking at diversifying the range of products on the market, as I have mentioned. So introducing things like corporate wholesale bonds. We are also planning to working on concepts like exchange traded funds through New Zealand Exchange. We are also looking at things like cross-listing with PNGX, the MOU arrangement which is in place. We are hoping that Energy Fiji Limited would also be on the listing trajectory in 2020, which should also get a lot of new buyers into the market. It's got a good shareholder base at this point in time in itself. So bringing that to listing will also then change the dynamics of the stock market. Then we have our subsidiary company as well, which is Central Share Registry. So there will be a lot of companies that we feel will be attracted to Central Share Registry in 2020. We are in the midst of trying to sort of make Central Share Registry into that one-stop shop for you when it comes to your registry services and when it comes to your shareholder services. So as a business, you need to focus on your core business. If you have shareholders, let us take care of it. And of course, we are the only registry company in Fiji. So on that sense, we are going to bank on that and try and attract a lot more companies onto the Central Share Registry. Then, of course, the World Exchange Congress itself will bring in a whole new brand set of new opportunities for us in terms of putting us to the forefront of global markets, and as well as the MOU arrangements we have with NZX and PNGX and Colombo Stock Exchange. We're going to see a lot of new opportunities being given rise to from that particular arrangement itself, which includes things like, for example, our staff going and attaching with NZX and just learning from there, introducing a whole new products on the market. And one other interesting phase that we are going in 2020 is establishing a business for the stock exchange group, which will be offering trustee services. So at this point in time, we are conducting trustee services for Energy Fiji Limited. We are looking after all the beneficiaries who are yet to take up the shares that the government had offered in 2018. In 2020, the EFL beneficiary is also going to move to this trustee company, and we are going to now start offering trustee services for a whole range of other products as well. So things like, for example, corporate wholesale bonds require trustee services. So we are going to embark on that journey as well, and that will be a startup that is going to come on in 2020.
That's a big leap.
It is, yes.
It's very brand new for an economy such as Fiji, and it's quite ambitious, I must say.
Well, yes, ambitious, but I think a lot of work has been undergoing in the background. It's just really the foresight, I think, of the board to make sure that we reach a particular level and, just aligning ourselves to our international counterparts. That's what it really is. Instead of just, sitting there and thinking that we are nestled in the Pacific Islands and, we can't really go up to that point. I think that's really something of the past. As a stock exchange, we are growing, and we are really, getting up to our international counterparts and saying that, yes, we are in Fiji, we are nestled in the Pacific Islands, but we are also a force to reckon in the future.
These trustee services, does NZX and PNGX provide the same service in their national?
Not same, but similar. So NZX, for example, has something known as smart shares. So what they do is they provide, for example, a depository service. So they, for example, they have a depository company where they hold custodian services for a lot of these kind of companies, which is unique in that sense, in the sense of providing such types of services. In certain jurisdictions, trustee services is not even warranted. But in a country like us, where of course the stock market is growing, so you need to have a very regulated environment, right? So that you can sort of perform these kind of functions. So in those terms, we see these trustee services as a very good business opportunity, as well as one which is aligned to a well-regulated market, in the sense that Reserve Bank heavily regulates us. We are the only licensed securities exchange. We are also under the purview of the Companies Act. So in that sense, it makes sense for the stock exchange itself to be taken up, an extra service as such. But of course, there needs to be independence. We are a frontline regulator of the stock market. When it comes to trustee services, we will be doing things on behalf of our shareholders or on behalf of the market. So there will be a separate entity, that's why, which is being established, where it will have its separate set of trustees, a separate function that would be overseen by the stock exchange. But the regulatory and the legal framework and the governance framework for that would be kept altogether separate. And that would be regulated by the Reserve Bank of Fiji as well.
But I still don't get, how do you guarantee its independence?
So there's demarcation. So for example, the trustees who come in there, for example, there is a board of directors for the stock exchange, right? For the trustees, there will be a separate board of directors. So all the decisions that are made, it's made through those trustees. It doesn't come through the stock exchange board of directors. So that independence has to be maintained because you are working. Of course, it's a separate and distinct function, right? But at the end of the day, you have to ensure that there is demarcation between the stock exchange as well as the trustee arm of business. So Central Share Registry has also had a fantastic 2019, I would say. We have seen tremendous growth as well in the number of clients that CSR has had. So as I had mentioned earlier, what CSR basically does is provide shareholder services for its clients, while the clients, of course, focus on their core business. So in the recent years, and this year alone, we've seen the number of clients grow from 19 to 22. That included, of course, ATH, Amalgamated Telecom Holdings, which is a listed company, finally come on board to CSR. So we are now handling the share register for ATH as well. But apart from that, what we also did was we extended our scope to unlisted companies as well. So we have at this point in time 3 unlisted companies that we are handling. One is Global Harvest Holdings. Then we have Guanovo Investments, and of course the biggest client is Energy Fiji Limited. So earlier this year, we also had Port Denrau Marina. So Port Denrau had come in as a client of CSR first, and then it went into its listing journey, and it's now a listed company. So we would like to treat it as a listed company coming on board and joining CSR. But in total, we've attracted 3 new companies to CSR. What does that mean for us? In total, under CSR, we are handling more than 45,000 shareholders. So basically providing them with any distributions for our clients when it comes to dividend distributions or annual report distributions or meeting notices. We are handling all of that on behalf of the client. If the shareholder requires to know what kind of shareholding they have, if they need their statements or their share certificates, we provide that with them. Then we also provide this update of information. So if a particular shareholder has changed their address or they need to update some kind of other contact information, then we can do that for them. So that's in entire what Central Share Registry is doing. Of course, at this point in time, the trustee service for EFL sits under Central Share Registry, which means that under the trustee service itself, we are managing more than 80,000 beneficiaries, but that is going to move to the separate arm come next year.